Letitia was berating the innocent Haru, telling him not to be reckless as he tried to fight a monster. She insisted that someone like him couldn't possibly handle a monster of that level, so he shouldn't even try to fight it if he didn't know what he was doing. Haru apologized to Letitia, confused as to why he was being scolded for trying to kill the monster. Letitia shot back with a furious expression, saying she didn't want his pathetic apology. If she hadn't come to save him, his head would have been crushed by the monster, just like she'd done to it. The other party members were in awe of Letitia's strength, having dealt with the monster in a single slash. They had expected her to be strong because she was the hero, and her power was on a completely different level. The title of hero was a special one, bestowed upon only a select few. Among them, Letitia was the youngest and most exceptional hero in history, admired not only for her beauty, but also for her boundless kindness, which made her a wonderful person inside and out. Everyone thought that her worrying about someone like Haru could only be something a kind person like her would do, but they realized she hadn't come back since taking Haru to get his wounds treated. They wondered if his injuries were that serious. In reality, it was far worse, as Haru's wounds weren't physical, but were the psychological scars inflicted by Letitia herself. Haru was dealing with her abuse, fully aware that everyone was fooled by her kind facade. He knew no one would believe that her true nature was this terrible, something he had been forced to endure time and time again. She ordered Haru to apologize to her, reminding him that their comrades were waiting and might come to check on them at any moment if they took any longer. Haru was aware that he was the only one Letitia treated so horribly, even though they were childhood friends. He reflected that it hadn't always been like this, but ever since she was chosen as the hero, her attitude toward him had grown colder and colder. He thought she was just blowing off steam. At first, she called him useless and always treated him like an idiot, even though he was always kind to her. She had ordered that his sole purpose in life was to be her shield, and to die in the process for the rest of his life. This hurt him deeply, and this was the moment he realized he couldn't take it anymore. Slowly, Haru got to his feet. She asked him why he was standing up instead of kneeling to apologize to her. Haru was certain he wouldn't endure this torment a moment longer. So, for the first time in his life, he strongly and clearly declared that he refused her order. This left Letitia in complete shock, as she never expected he would dare to resist. He went on saying he wouldn't do anything she ordered anymore and wouldn't take back his words, no matter what happened. At this declaration, Letitia flew into a rage and drew her sword, pressing the tip right against his eye, but Haru stood firm in his decision, not even flinching as she continuously screamed in his face, furious that he had dared to talk back to her. She demanded that he do as she said if he didn't want to be kicked out of the party. However, Haru simply turned his back and walked away. He refused to listen to her anymore, and Letitia called out to him again. This time, he made it clear that he was leaving, just as she'd said, by kicking him out of the party for not following her orders. He was doing just that, and told her that from now on she could report the completion of their quest to the guild herself, which used to be his job. She stood there, completely shocked to see him change so much, as he declared that she and the party were no longer his concern. Letitia repeatedly screamed for him to stop, but Haru just kept walking. An intense pain welled up inside him, but he knew he couldn't go on like this any longer. Haru couldn't listen to her anymore. He couldn't endure it anymore. He couldn't be in the party anymore. Or rather, he couldn't be with Letitia anymore. He had deliberately messed up while dealing with the monster this time, just to see how Letitia would treat him. He still remembered her words about him being just a shield for her, meant to live to serve and die. He knew the Letitia he once knew would never say such things, and that the girl he used to know was gone. This was his farewell to his old party and his childhood friend, Letitia. Afterward, he went to the Adventurers Guild. The guild receptionist was shocked when Haru announced that he was leaving the party, especially since he had been with Letitia for the past 5 years as adventurers. She couldn't understand the reason behind his decision, and Haru simply replied that he had his own reasons, and smiled. He asked if he could leave the paperwork to her, and she understood that she should just do as he asked for now, instead of asking more questions. Haru then asked if there were any quests for a solo adventurer like him. He knew he had been kicked out of the party, but he also understood it was inevitable, especially since Letitia had been treating him so harshly for a long time, which had only gotten worse recently. He figured it wouldn't be strange if her true nature was revealed to everyone at some point. Still, he felt a pang of sadness that he was still thinking about Letitia even when he was finally free. Meanwhile, the guild receptionist told him that she couldn't find any quests for solo adventurers, as right now, there were only quests for parties. Haru wasn't happy about this and wondered what he should do now, since he didn't even have the money to rent a place to stay. Just then, a cute girl who was getting everyone's attention approached him with a bright smile. She introduced herself as Alice, a solo adventurer. She asked if they could talk, and Haru agreed to listen. She said she was also looking for someone to form a party with in order to find a good quest for herself. So she suggested they form a party together. Haru was happy to be asked, but he was really weak and didn't think he'd be of any use to her, which would probably just cause her trouble. Instead, she asked him why he thought that about himself when he used to be in the hero's party. Haru honestly said that he was just a porter for them, which surprised her. She asked again if that was really the case, and he immediately showed her his adventure card. The card clearly stated he was only a level 7 mage. Alice said that was good enough for now, and that they should try taking a quest together. She was somewhat direct with him for some reason, leaving Haru confused as to why she accepted him so easily. She took his hand, saying he probably didn't have any money, so they should just give it a try. In the end, they decided to take on a wolf extermination quest and immediately went into the forest to deal with them. Alice was fearless, even as the wolves charged straight at them, baring their sharp fangs aggressively. She gripped her sword tightly and began to slash at them with her sword techniques. But a wolf attacked her from behind, and just in time, Haru intervened. He was confident that he had protected her, and Alice was happy to realize how reliable he was. After that, she comfortably slashed away at the wolves in front of her, while Haru handled the ones at the rear with his daggers and sword skills. They wiped out all the wolves, and before long, Alice cut down the last one. She let out a sigh of relief after a long fight, saying they had taken down quite a lot of them, which meant they had completed the quest to exterminate the wolves roaming around the city's border region. Haru was happy that he wasn't a burden to Alice, while she had a different opinion. She thought Haru was truly excellent in that last battle. He was very surprised to hear that, as she had just praised him. Alice said that it was a very easy fight, which was only possible thanks to him. The fact that he was so good with a sword despite being a mage, along with his perfectly timed attacks, all made him a true support. She took his hand to thank him for his support, which startled Haru, and he pulled his hand back, saying it was no big deal. She told him he was truly amazing, and that his attacks were clearly those of an expert with years of experience. He was very moved to hear such praise about himself, as he had always been teased or scolded by Letitia whenever he stood in front of or behind her in battles. Haru felt a bit strange and lowered his head, feeling this for the first time in a long while. Alice asked if he was okay, and he replied that it was just that his chest suddenly felt tight. She moved closer, asking if he was sick, but Haru assured Alice that wasn't it. He just laughed it off. However, at that very moment, a large wolf appeared beside them, and Alice sensed its presence. She was horrified by the giant wolf, and it immediately attacked them without giving them any time to react. At the last second, Alice managed to push Haru out of the spot where the wolf was attacking. But her left arm was severely injured in the process. She was bleeding heavily, making Haru worry for her. She told Haru to run, and he was surprised, asking why she would say such a thing at a time like this. Alice's face had grown a bit pale from the blood loss, and she informed him that this monster, a wolf king, wasn't supposed to be here. She had thought about running away with Haru, but knowing the Wolf King would catch up to them, she decided to grab her sword and stand her ground to fight it. She wanted to protect Haru, even if it meant sacrificing her own life. She told Haru that he should run away quickly, because she knew this was too dangerous and would likely lead to her death. However, the responsibility of protecting Haru meant a lot to Alice, since she was the one who brought him here in the first place. But to her surprise, Haru asked Alice why she was panicking at a time like this, when it was just the two of them against a single adult wolf. His face showed that this was nothing out of the ordinary, making her unable to believe his calmness in front of the Wolf King. Haru started to walk towards the Wolf King, and she tried to stop him, but Haru stood firm in front of the monster, asking Alice if she'd ever seen a fully grown wolf like this before. He thought he shouldn't be surprised by the look on her face, since he was also shocked the first time he saw the Wolf King. She asked what he was even talking about in a situation like this, and warned him that the Wolf King wasn't something a level 7 mage could possibly handle. As the monster attacked him, Haru cast a simple fire spell, incinerating the Wolf King's entire existence. When his attack subsided, the ground in his attack's trajectory was also melted by the flames. Haru remarked that this marked the completion of their subjugation quest. He felt like he was the only one who could handle monsters, but decided not to get too full of himself, since it wasn't really that big of a deal. Alice approached him and grabbed his shoulder, completely shocked by what she had just witnessed. He told her it was just a basic level fire spell. She exclaimed in a hushed voice that there was nothing normal about that fire magic. He figured it was no big deal, since the wolf was just a level 5, like she'd said at the beginning of the quest. Alice told him the monster they just faced was actually a different one, a level 30 Wolf King, which even she wouldn't have stood a chance against. Haru was a little confused by that, because he had previously heard Letitia say it was just a mature wolf, a level 5 monster. Around that time, Letitia had mocked Haru for learning fire magic for the first time, and teased that even a child could use a spell like that. Letitia had told him he was an embarrassment to her, so he shouldn't tell anyone about the incident. Haru was deeply shaken as he realized there was no way Letitia didn't know. He understood that she was a hero, admired by all, so different from him, and famous for being an amazing adventurer, which was why he had always believed everything she said, even though she had treated him so badly all this time. Alice called out to Haru, pulling him from his thoughts. Looking back, he realized Alice was seriously injured from the battle. She had told him she would be fine, but to her surprise, Haru told her to stay still and let him use recovery magic on her. Alice stared at Haru, utterly speechless. When Haru finished healing her, he asked if something was wrong or if she was hurting anywhere else. Alice exclaimed, unable to believe that he could use recovery magic, even though he was just an ordinary mage. She informed him that recovery magic could only be used by adventurers of the priest class, but Haru had never heard that before. He just said that he'd used a basic level spell that any mage could use. Alice realized that Haru's perception was messed up for some reason, and she was stunned by his ignorance. She warned him that there was definitely something wrong with his adventurer card and demanded to see it again. Haru agreed to let Alice see his adventurer card, insisting it was an official one issued by the guild. However, Alice remained skeptical and asked him when he last updated his card. He replied that it had been 5 years since the card was made, and he hadn't updated it since. She couldn't believe it. 5 years without getting it checked was absolutely insane. Haru thought he must have said something weird again. Alice asked him why he hadn't renewed his card in all those years. She decided they needed to head back to the guild immediately. When they returned to the guild, Alice told the receptionist that Haru's adventurer card needed to be renewed. The guild staffer agreed and told her the renewal fee. Alice immediately offered to pay it herself. Haru told Alice that the renewal fee was expensive, so she didn't have to pay for him. Alice replied that it was no problem for her, and that she wouldn't be able to sleep if they didn't get it checked right now. She couldn't fathom how Haru could be so clueless, thinking that killing a wolf king or using recovery magic was a normal thing to do. She also pointed out that they were getting a reward for the quest anyway, but Haru said she shouldn't spend her share on him. She insisted that she was doing this for her own sake and told him he was being too stubborn. Alice smiled and said that he'd saved her life back there, so she asked him to please let her return the favor. She felt that this amount of money wasn't nearly enough to repay him, and that from now on, she should do more for him. Haru felt embarrassed hearing those words from a cute girl like her and lowered his head. Alice teased Haru, asking if he was imagining something weird, and he immediately denied it. The two of them shared a light-hearted conversation and started laughing together. She burst out laughing at how serious Haru was being, and he laughed along, knowing he could be like that sometimes. This felt a little unfamiliar to him, and he realized that he felt very warm being with Alice. They were having a fun time chatting, and Haru was savoring the moment. He wondered how many years it had been since he'd felt so at peace in his life. Then he suddenly remembered something and asked her if renewing his card was really that important, since the fee was really expensive. Alice told him that it was extremely important, as it's an adventurer's identity, and not knowing how strong you are could cause trouble for you later on. Alice couldn't believe he had gone all these years without renewing his card. Haru recalled that in the past, Letitia herself had told him that renewing his adventurer's card was pointless for someone like him and would be a waste of money. She had mocked him for coming so far without knowing his place and always looked at him with disdain. Haru felt he couldn't tell Alice that, so he just said that he only did odd jobs, so getting an evaluation wasn't that important to him. Alice was troubled by his lack of such basic knowledge that an adventurer should renew their card every 6 months. This was the first time Haru had ever heard this, and realized he hadn't even been allowed to do something so important while he was with Letitia. He wondered why Letitia had treated him so badly. Just then, the guild staff brought him his card, and with it, the answer to his question. Alice asked her if the renewal was complete, and the staff member said there was something unexpected on it. Before handing the card to Haru, he read the card and his stats and realized that he was actually a sage at level 82. The guild staff couldn't believe that Haru had possessed such immense power all this time. For Haru, this was a massive shock, since even the hero, Letitia, was only at level 55. The fact that he was level 82 meant he was even stronger than the hero. Alice wondered if this was even possible, and explained to Haru that Sage was a special class that only a small percentage of people ever achieved. Meanwhile, Haru's world was turned upside down, leaving him feeling empty, as if he hadn't achieved any of it. He couldn't remember when he'd become a sage or even stronger than Letitia. The most shocking question in his mind was whether Letitia had known about his power all along. The guild staff was in shock, Haru was in shock, and so was Alice, as she couldn't understand how Haru's class had changed from mage to sage. She explained that sages were experts who could use any magic they wanted, including healing spells or any other type of magic. This made her understand how he was able to use a healing spell. But even if he was level 82, how could a simple, basic level fire spell be powerful enough to kill a wolf king? Alice noticed Haru standing there silently, with his head down, and she asked him if he was okay. All of Haru's emotions were going numb and haywire at the same time, because he was sure there was no way Letitia didn't know about his power. So why had she lied to him all this time? Haru thought there was no reason for her to do so, since she was the one everyone called special. He also realized that everything he thought was to relieve her stress wasn't actually that at all. Letitia was just taking her hatred out on him. Unable to accept that someone was stronger than she was, Alice called out his name and said she was feeling hungry, so they should go get something to eat. Haru agreed, and they went to a cafe together and ordered their food. Alice ordered generously, as a way to celebrate completing their first mission together. Meanwhile, Haru felt dejected and thought that he should tell Alice about his past, since she had come to him when he was in trouble and offered to team up. She had also saved him and been so kind, which made him feel even more that he needed to explain things to her. Alice called out to him and said that he didn't need to force himself to tell her anything. Haru was moved by her words, which addressed exactly what he'd been worrying about. She went on to say that sometimes talking to someone can make things easier, but there are also times when it doesn't help. She was honest with Haru, saying she did want to know about his relationship with the hero, but she wouldn't want to if talking about it would be hard for him. She didn't want Haru to be hurt by dredging up sad memories like that. Haru listened to her and asked if she was really okay with that. Alice replied that she was perfectly fine with it, and told him to stop looking like a lost child. Just then, Haru recalled a memory from his past. When Letitia found him after he had gotten lost, she had led him back home, holding his hand, and promised that she would always be there to protect him. But now, Letitia was like a demon, telling Haru that his only purpose was to be her shield. Haru had always believed that one day, Letitia would return to him, like the childhood friends they once were. And because she was so important to him, he had endured all the taunts and abuse, just with the thought that it would make her feel better. Haru wanted to believe Letitia treated him that way because she was worried about him. But perhaps he was the only one who felt that way. He cried out all the mental anguish he had gone through over the years, and Alice held his hand the entire time he wept. Afterwards, they had dinner and went for a walk. Alice remarked that the dinner was wonderful, and Haru agreed with her, but then apologized for crying in a place like that. Alice assured him that he didn't need to worry about it. This was when she felt it was the right time to ask Haru if he wanted to travel with her from now on. She also wanted to repay him for saving her life, but the real reason she wanted to be with him was because she felt that they would experience good things if they were together. She asked Haru what he thought about this, and Haru bowed his head in thought. Finally, he decided he would answer yes. But before he could speak, Letitia interrupted him. She exclaimed that she had finally found him and was furious, as usual, only with him. Letitia said that he was truly a burden, causing her trouble by running away from the party. She ordered him to hurry back to them if he had calmed down. Haru couldn't believe this, and he began to feel a heavy weight just from having to face her. He just sighed, releasing all his pain instead of worrying about it. Letitia got angry at his indifferent attitude, and Haru reminded her that he was supposed to be kicked out of the party anyway. Instead of letting him leave, Letitia shouted that there was no way he could survive without her, and told him to stop complaining and come back. The next thing she said was another bitter blow. She screamed at him to go back to their master instead of being disobedient, even though he was just a talentless nobody. Haru asked Letitia if it was really okay for her to say such things. Letitia quickly retorted that she didn't care about his opinion. Haru reminded her that she was screaming and saying vulgar things to him in a public place where everyone was watching. Letitia suddenly panicked when she realized it, and people began to whisper to each other, recognizing Letitia, the hero who was rumored to be kind. But she was nothing like what people said. Letitia knew she would be in trouble if this continued, so she leaned in close and whispered in Haru's ear to come to the south gate. Then she left, and Haru was shocked to realize that he had actually said all those things to Letitia. But during that entire time, Letitia hadn't even noticed Alice's presence. Alice asked Haru if the person they had just met was really the sword princess Letitia. She couldn't believe that was the hero he was always with. Haru honestly replied to Alice that everything she'd heard about the hero was true, and added that the attitude they had just witnessed was Letitia's true nature. Alice suddenly realized just how much he must have suffered. Then Haru said it was time for them to find an inn, since it was getting late. Alice felt sad for him, but she still went with him to look for an inn. Finally, they found a place to rest and wished each other good night, promising to see each other the next day. Alice stopped Haru and said that while it might not be her place to say anything, she wanted him to know that he wasn't anyone's property, and to never forget that. Haru was moved to hear these words, feeling truly free, so he thanked Alice for saying them. Then, in the middle of the night, Haru was lying in bed, but he couldn't sleep. He felt a little restless, so he got up and went outside. As he left the inn, Alice seemed to have guessed that he was leaving to meet Letitia. She was worried for him as Haru went to the south gate and confronted Letitia. She yelled at him for being late, and demanded to know who he thought he was to make her wait so long. She asked how he could take the matter of her waiting so lightly and accused him, saying that biting the hand that feeds you wasn't a good look for a servant like him. She called him many other awful things as well. Haru called out Letitia's name, surprising her. He told her that he had always considered her his precious childhood friend, which was why he had always endured all the insults she threw at him. Letitia was shocked to hear him talk back like this. And he made it clear that he didn't remember ever becoming her servant. Haru asked Letitia why she had become this way, but to his surprise, Letitia gave him a cold look and snapped that she couldn't believe he thought they were equals. She said she wouldn't let him get away with defying her. Letitia angrily grabbed Haru by the collar, making it clear that she would not let him leave her, because she believed that only she could save him. Haru didn't understand what she meant by saving him. Letitia's eyes glared at him as if she wanted to kill him, like a demon. With the full intent of controlling him, he remembered the face of his childhood friend, Letitia, and then the face of Alice, who had told him that he wasn't anyone's property. Alice's words opened his eyes and gave him the courage to stand up to Letitia, and he brushed her hand off him. Haru pushed Letitia away and told her clearly that this was his goodbye, forever. The fear in his voice enraged Letitia to the point that she could no longer control herself. She drew her sword, pointed it at him, and warned that he should prepare to lose an arm or a leg. Haru could tell that Letitia wasn't joking, and he braced himself. But in the next instant, Letitia lunged forward with such speed that he couldn't dodge. She unleashed a 3-slash attack, and he remembered that it was a top-tier skill. He quickly did what he could and cast a basic shield spell to block the attack. Surprisingly, his shield not only blocked her attack, but also knocked her back several meters. Letitia couldn't believe he had just stopped a high-level sword skill with only a basic-level defensive spell. She said his magic was just too weird, and that was exactly why she couldn't accept him. Her rage only grew after this exchange. She warned him that next time she would use her full power, so he'd better apologize before he died by her hand. Letitia said that his fire attacks wouldn't work on her either, so he shouldn't get too cocky for defeating a level 30 Wolf King, because he was now fighting a level 55 hero. Haru prepared for the next wave of attacks by creating a counterattack of his own, gathering all his power into a single magic orb. Letitia was stunned by the size and amount of magical energy in that orb. Haru told her that this was the first time he'd ever used his magic seriously, but that it was only fair since she was also getting serious with her next attack. Letitia felt that she might actually die from his attack, and tried to convince him to stop. She accused him of holding back all this time, as she felt goosebumps from what was about to happen to her. Haru didn't care what she said, and he fired his most powerful magic attack at Letitia, causing a massive explosion in the area. When his attack ended, Haru realized he might have gone a little overboard. He called out Letitia's name to check if she was still alive. As the dust settled, he saw Letitia lying motionless in front of him, covered in injuries. He couldn't believe he had actually beaten her. But Letitia insisted she hadn't lost, refusing to accept it. She went on saying that a failure like him could never defeat her. Haru wasn't sure how to respond to her, as she once again called him one of her possessions. He asked her why she would say something like that. Despite the fact that he had just defeated her, Haru admitted that if she couldn't even be fair with him after he had defeated her, then he would have nothing more to say to her. Haru felt a deep sadness, for he had lost an important childhood friend, a companion he'd spent 5 years adventuring with. The Letitia he once knew, who had wanted to become a hero alongside him, for whom being together meant more than any title. But now, none of that mattered anymore. He thanked her for everything up until now and said his goodbyes. As he left Letitia lying on the ground, Letitia couldn't help but call out after Haru, telling him he couldn't just leave her. She insisted that if she wasn't there to protect him, he would die. She had this image of him as a weakling in her mind, incapable of doing anything on his own. Or perhaps she was just being toxically possessive. In this moment, she was still lying on the ground, defeated by the very same Haru she had belittled. After that, Haru went to Alice and gave her an official answer that he would love to form a party with her. Alice was overjoyed to hear that and decided they should register at the guild after breakfast. She said she thought she might get rejected. Haru asked her why she thought that, and she replied that it was just her own misunderstanding. Now, they needed to figure out their next plan. She asked Haru if there was anything he wanted to do, and hearing this made him feel so relieved. Because up until now, it had always been Letitia forcing her decisions on him. He told Alice he wanted to get far away from here. Sometime later, Letitia went to the guild to check on Haru's whereabouts. But she received the shocking news that he had gone on a journey. She asked the staff where Haru had gone, but the clerk couldn't disclose details about any adventurer. Letitia thought that Haru surely couldn't have gone too far by himself. Then Letitia suddenly remembered seeing a girl standing behind Haru last night. She started having lewd thoughts that Haru and that girl might be having fun together, which felt like a knife twisting in her gut. Letitia cried out in despair, wondering what Haru was doing right now. As she began to search for him, the guild staff whispered that there was a carriage about to leave for Orlando from the west gate. Letitia heard her words clearly and asked if it was really okay to reveal the movements of other adventurers, which was clearly a violation of the guild's rules. The guild staff member replied that she was just talking about the location of a carriage and reminded Letitia that she might not remember, but she was the one who had issued adventurer cards to both of them. She recalled when she was a trainee, Letitia and Haru had come to register as adventurers. They had thanked her for her help with the documents, and the guild staff member asserted that she was just a guild receptionist, but she wanted to tell Letitia that she and Haru used to get along so well in the past. She thought it would be better if they talked to each other about the problems between them. Letitia smiled back at the receptionist. After leaving the guild, she remembered that everyone around her helped her because she was the hero. So, as she had told herself before, the one who was wrong all along was actually Haru, and she wouldn't let him get away with it. An expression like a demon on her face. Meanwhile, Haru and Alice were on their journey in a carriage. Alice was enjoying the pleasant weather. Haru asked Alice about the city of Orlando, and she said she had never seen it before, but Orlando was famous for being a fortified city where the Lord's daughter was a saintess candidate. Haru didn't know what a saintess was, and she explained that a saintess is a character class only for those who have received a message from an oracle. She said that they can use all kinds of healing magic, and if at maximum power, they can even resurrect the dead. Haru was amazed by the power of a saintess. Alice was happy and proud of herself for cutting his hair. Like a professional, she said that the hairstyle really suited him and was much better than his previous one. She asked if he had ever had a haircut, and Haru replied that he used to think he was ugly and not easy on the eyes. He asserted that he wasn't complaining about her haircutting skills. Alice then eagerly handed Haru a mirror and asked if he had ever looked in one. He realized that she could be scary sometimes. Then Alice asked who had told him he was ugly. He told her about the times Letitia had called him unsightly, saying he should grow his hair long to hide his ugly face. Alice couldn't believe Letitia would say such a thing, and couldn't understand why he would accept it. Haru told her that Letitia was an incredibly talented adventurer, even if she was a bit warped now. He had always believed she was right since they were children. Alice couldn't stand hearing him talk about Letitia anymore, so she exclaimed Haru's name in disbelief. Alice told Haru that he should have more confidence in himself, that he was stronger than he thought. This was the first time Haru had ever heard that, and he asked her if he was strong just because he was a level 82 sage. Alice said that wasn't what she meant, and reminded him of the moment he had saved her life. She said he could have abandoned her and run away, but he didn't, which meant it was much more important to have a strong heart. Haru felt good hearing these words, and she again said that he was really strong and cool. He just replied that he helped her because he thought the monster was only a level 5 monster. Alice called him stubborn for not believing in himself even now. Suddenly, a loud noise erupted from somewhere around them. Haru and Alice quickly checked outside to see if it was a monster attack, and they discovered smoke rising in one area. At that location, The butler, Nine, was protecting Lady Ange. Nine asked Ange to stay back, as she was fighting some monsters with fire magic attacks. They thought they had defeated the monsters with that attack, but the opponents were actually death ants, which have a high resistance to magic attacks. Nine told Ange to run with the guards while she distracted them. She refused to leave Nine, but the other guards pulled her away, saying that Nine was only level 33 and she was the only one among them who could fight against those death ants. Ange cried, not wanting to leave Nine alone, because the death ants were actually level 45 monsters. The death ants attacked Nine, and she managed to dodge them by using her twin ray magic. But to her surprise, the attack didn't even leave a scratch on the ants' bodies. The death ants counterattacked, and Ange couldn't bear to see Nine get hurt like that. So she ran to Nine's side while crying and told her to pull herself together. Nine said that she couldn't stay here, and just then, a death ant appeared behind Ange. They were in trouble, and she prayed for salvation. Right at that moment, a fire magic attack hit the death ant, saving them both in the process. They never expected to be saved this way, making Nine wonder if that last fire attack was high-level magic. Then Ange saw Haru running over, asking if she was okay. Nine scolded Haru for being a bit reckless with his previous attack, as it could have hurt Ange. Ange asked Haru if he was the one who used magic to save her, and he admitted he was. He offered to heal her right now. When he saw she had a cross-shaped necklace, Haru felt drawn to her. She immediately asked who he was, and then Nine stepped between them. After Haru healed their wounds, Ange apologized for having spoken to him so informally. Afterward, she sincerely thanked him for saving them and asked if she could know their names. Haru introduced himself and Alice, while Ange continued to stare at him without blinking. Haru felt nervous about it and asked Alice if he was being stared at because of his pained expression. Alice told Haru that wasn't it, and then Nine asked Ange to stop staring and introduce everyone. Ange apologized for not introducing herself and formally introduced herself as Ange Autumn, daughter of Lord Orlando and a saintess in training. Nine was her personal attendant. Haru was excited to meet the one chosen by the Oracle, as Alice had mentioned, which confused Ange to see that he knew about her. He complimented her on being an amazing saintess, specializing in recovery. But she humbly denied it, saying she still had much to learn. Nine was still looking at Haru, and he noticed it too. Until Nine became certain that they were adventurers, she asked if they were in a hurry. Haru replied that they weren't. At that moment, Nine asked if he would accept a request to accompany Ange on her pilgrimage. Ange was surprised to see Nine make such a proposal, and Haru asked what a pilgrimage was. Nine explained that a pilgrimage is a journey to become a true saintess. Haru asked Alice what they should do now, and Alice said that their carriage had probably already left, so they should listen to Nine's request. Nine was grateful for their help and explained that there were many heroes' tombs scattered in different locations, and Ange needed to visit all of them to pray. However, the difficult part was that the heroes' tombs were all in remote areas. For instance, the next place they were heading to was the summit of the Crest Mountains. Haru wondered why there would be a tomb in a place like that. Alice explained that heroes were the ones who sealed demons to save the world, so their tombs were built on sacred mountains and worshipped from there. Haru was reminded of Letitia upon hearing the mention of heroes, and he felt sad again having to think about her. Despite that, she continued, saying that was all the information and that having excellent adventurers like Haru would bring them peace of mind. Nine asked Haru what he thought about it, and he said he wasn't sure if someone like him would be useful to them. Nine reminded him that he had just wiped out a swarm of dead ants with a single attack. And after that, he told Alice that he had accepted the quest. Alice affirmed that he did the right thing, as it would be difficult to continue on foot from here. Ange apologized to Haru for the sudden request and promised to thank him properly when they returned to the autumn home. Haru told her he didn't need that. But Alice called Haru back to tell him that refusing thanks from important people was disrespectful and could cause them to lose face if he declined. Haru didn't realize that speaking so formally to Ange could cause trouble. Ange then encouraged Haru, telling him he could speak to her informally. In return, she asked if he would be okay if she also addressed him casually. He confirmed that it was perfectly fine, and said that from now on, he'd be in her care. This made her flustered because he was too close, and she liked the way he smiled at her. They went back and forth for a while, asking each other to speak informally. By nightfall, they had set up camp and stopped the carriage. Nine informed Haru that they would reach the Crest Mountain's peak the next day, but would have to continue on foot since the carriage couldn't go up the mountain. Haru asked Alice if that was okay, and she was perfectly fine with anything as long as she was with him. Afterward, Haru praised Ange, saying she was truly amazing for undertaking this pilgrimage. Flustered, Ange replied that she wanted to become a true saintess and be able to help the people of Orlando. She said her father couldn't spend much time with her because he was busy with work, but the people of Orlando had always treated her well, so she wanted to repay them in any way she could. Haru was genuinely surprised that she could use such powerful magic at her age, but to her greater surprise, he said that he had only used basic fire magic before. Nine couldn't believe it and thought he was joking. Haru didn't understand why they were reacting that way. Alice explained to Haru that fire magic could normally only be used at close range to attack enemies. He was shocked to learn that this was the proper way to use his magic, and asked Alice why his fire magic was different. She had been meaning to ask that very question, and Nine confirmed that Haru was full of surprises. She said that having such fire power at his age was truly an incredible achievement. Haru asked Nine if she could teach him how to use fire magic like she did earlier, as he wanted to learn more spells. Currently, he only knew 3 basic spells: recovery, defense, and fire magic. His words shocked all of them, as they realized there were so many things wrong with him. Alice exclaimed, asking how he managed to travel for 5 years as an adventurer, knowing only 3 basic spells. Alice said that Haru should have been able to learn 1 or 2 more spells in that time. Haru replied that he had been teaching himself magic, but Letitia had come and taken his spell book, saying that learning magic was pointless for a handyman like him, so he should just chop firewood. That was why Haru was only able to learn basic level spells. Alice felt great sympathy for him and asked if she could give him a hug. Nine realized he had complicated reasons behind his ineptitude, so she told him she couldn't guarantee how much she could help, but she wouldn't mind teaching him fire magic. Haru was overjoyed to hear that, and Nine said she would certainly listen to a request from the person who helped them. Not only that, but she was also excited to teach him. Ange remarked that Haru was a young man with a lot of potential. She told him that Nine was actually the head butler of her family, so she might be a slightly strict teacher. Then Nine began to teach Haru the basics. She said that magic was like a puzzle, so he had to turn the magic into an optimal piece. Additionally, there were many different factors and combinations, depending on the magical density, distance, and trajectory. Among those, he just needed to concentrate on all of these, because otherwise the spell would collapse and fail to activate. She instructed him on how to accurately determine all of these factors during casting. She explained fire magic, saying she was trying to perform it as slowly as possible, then asked Haru if he could see clearly. Haru agreed that he could grasp some of it and tried to use it, but Alice quickly covered his mouth to stop him. She made him promise that the first time he used fire magic, he would hold back as much as he could. Haru agreed to the promise. Nine said that it usually takes a month to learn fire magic, so it couldn't be learned immediately. But Alice believed Haru could do it right now, so she told him not to use it here, or else he might blow up the entire place. After that, they safely reached the entrance of the hero's tomb without facing any monsters along the way. Alice was glad they hadn't run into any trouble, while Ange asked Nine if she was all right. Nine replied that it was nothing. It was just that this place was too quiet. Haru asked them how to open the door, and Nine said that a saintess needed to touch the door to open it. Afterward, they entered the holy ground, and Nine also informed him that after a certain amount of time, the seal on the door would reactivate, trapping anyone who remained inside. They were shocked to see Ange being so calm about such a thing during her pilgrimage. As they went deeper inside, they soon saw a coffin up ahead. Ange asked everyone to wait while she continued from here. She approached the coffin, clasping her hands together to begin her prayer. Just then, the light from the pilgrimage began to shine around Ange. All the light emanating from the pilgrimage was absorbed by Ange, and Haru understood the meaning of the saying that a saintess receives power during her journey. After a while, she finished her prayer and apologized for making everyone wait so long. But as she walked down the stairs, her foot slipped, and Haru quickly caught her to keep her from falling. Haru asked if Ange was okay, and she felt flustered being so close to him. Ange felt like she was about to faint, while Nine told her to calm down. Alice whispered that she'd noticed Ange seemed determined from the start, so she asked Nine if she made that request after seeing that Ange had feelings for Haru. Nine was surprised by Alice's sharp perception and said she was worthy of being a saintess. But Nine didn't want Ange to sacrifice herself for everyone's sake. She wanted Ange to feel like a girl before becoming a saintess. And Alice could sense the pure intentions behind Nine's reasoning. After their work here was done, Nine sent a messenger to the castle to prepare for a party. Then suddenly, a giant dragon appeared before them, declaring that there were still some lowly rats alive, which meant the dragon had already killed some people. In the dragon's presence, everyone except Haru shuddered, unsure of what to do now. Meanwhile, back in Orlando, Letitia had apparently arrived there to find Haru, but she was angry to find him nowhere in sight. This made her guess that he might be wasting time on his way here. She wondered if she should start looking for him along the old path, and thought about why she was acting like such a fool for Haru. Just then, a man behind her informed everyone that a dragon had appeared in the Crest Mountain range. Everyone knew this was a bad omen, as Ange was there to make her pilgrimage. They considered sending some high-level magic users. But another person pointed out that dragons have magic resistance in their scales. So for now, all they could do was inform Ange's father about what was happening. Letitia wasn't very interested in the incident until she heard that a male mage using fire magic with insane power was also present with the ants. Hearing this, Letitia immediately took off running, thinking she'd have to deal with Haru's mess yet again. She ran nonstop, telling herself that he shouldn't be doing such pointless things. She thought that everything would be fine if Haru would just listen to her. She decided she wouldn't let anyone oppose her this time because of that idiot Haru. But suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind. She stopped and tried to think about why she wanted to become a hero. She recalled that since she was a child, she had always wanted to be a hero. But now, Letitia wasn't sure why. She tried to remember, but then a splitting headache hit her, and she fell to her knees, clutching her head in her hands. She remembered that every time she tried to recall this specific reason, her headache would return. She didn't understand why this was happening. In her mind, the thoughts of protecting Haru were slowly turning into a desire to control him, no matter what. Her way of thinking was being influenced by something, making it hard for her to think clearly. She wondered how long this had been going on and recalled that she'd had this feeling ever since defeating the Demon King. Then a dark creature rose from her shadow and pierced her. This wasn't a physical attack, but a psychological one meant to take over her thoughts, sending her mind into chaos. When things settled down, she came up with the idea of locking Haru away. This time, it seemed Letitia had been controlled by something all along, which had caused her to hurt Haru without even realizing it. She decided to head to where Haru was. Meanwhile, at the hero's pilgrimage gate, the dragon was trying to attack them with its tail. Haru said it was his first time seeing a dragon, and asked Alice if they were different from other monsters. Alice replied that dragons are completely different creatures. She said that monsters are loyal to demons, while dragons are a proud race that serves no one. She told them they needed to escape, and that she would use a flash bomb first to stun the dragon, creating an opening. She asserted that this would be very difficult, and Nine responded by telling them about something she'd read in a book. The dragon outside was a superior ancient dragon, so it would definitely have excellent magic resistance, making things like flash bombs useless against it. The dragon itself told them they were right not to try and fight it. It went on to say that neither magic nor swords would work on it. So the only thing left for them was death. The dragon offered them a choice, whether they wanted to be swallowed whole or eaten piece by piece. Alice, Nine, and Ange were all terrified by the threat of the ancient dragon. But surprisingly, Haru stepped forward and calmly greeted it, asking if he could talk to it. Alice cried out at what he was doing, but he continued to speak to the dragon, saying that if it could use human language, he'd like to try talking. He apologized if this area was its territory and they had entered without permission. But he told the dragon they had business related to the hero's tomb and would leave right after, so they could just forget this whole incident. Surprisingly, the dragon listened to Haru carefully and started to laugh. It found it interesting that Haru spoke so calmly to it as if they were equals. This was the first time it had met a human like Haru. The dragon then moved closer and realized Haru was a mage. It proposed a bet with him, that he would have to attack it with all the power he had. If Haru could make it falter, the dragon would overlook the fact that someone had come here today. Haru agreed to the bet, while the dragon felt sorry for him, thinking Haru would struggle a lot. However, to the dragon's surprise, Haru used fire magic to attack it, which confirmed Alice's suspicions that he was indeed capable of firing off that spell. Haru asked the dragon about his attack, as the dragon felt the pain from the blow. Alice was shocked to see the dragon was still alive after taking Haru's magic head-on. Nine was also surprised by the dragon's magic resistance, even though its scales were burned in the process. The dragon thought it was going to die and couldn't help but feel shocked, wanting to know more about Haru. Haru then called out to Alice and thanked her for her advice, thanks to which he was able to perform this magic attack. He looked at her with a bright smile, thanking her for the tips. Then, Haru apologized to the dragon and announced that he had promised his companions he would hold back as much as possible. At first, the dragon was very surprised to hear that. Then, Haru declared that he wanted the dragon to forgive his last attack and that he wanted to try again with his full power. The dragon now felt terrified of Haru's power, so it bowed its head to the ground to apologize to him. Haru asked the dragon why it was burying its head in the ground, and the dragon replied that it was just a little too confident. It explained that people usually run away as soon as they hear about the legendary dragon, so it thought it would go around and have some fun with humans. But the dragon never expected a human like Haru to appear. Haru didn't understand why the dragon felt like it was about to be killed, but he felt sorry for scaring it so badly. The others behind him were all stunned, only knowing that Haru was at least stronger than an ancient dragon. Haru told the dragon that he didn't mind what it did, as long as the dragon had realized its mistake. Hearing his kind words, the dragon was moved. The fact that Haru possessed great power, but not being arrogant is truly respectable in the eyes of a dragon. The dragon then apologized for attacking him so suddenly and for acting like a bad dragon, doing unworthy things. Haru then introduced himself to the dragon and asked for her name. The dragon revealed that her name was Sana, and declared that she wanted to become Haru's disciple. Haru wasn't ready for such a sudden, self-proclaimed disciple and tried to refuse the ancient dragon, saying it was impossible. Sana thought he was objecting only because he didn't want a dragon as a disciple, so she transformed into another one of her forms. The form Sana transformed into was actually very human-like, and she asked Haru if there shouldn't be a problem now, right? He was very surprised to learn that dragons could take human form. Sana explained that it was one of a dragon's abilities. Now that her size was smaller, Sana bowed her head again and asked Haru to be her master. He tried to stop her, then turned to Alice to ask what they should do. Alice placed a hand on her forehead, saying she didn't know what to do in this situation. While Haru was at a loss, Sana was begging him to take her in, and she was willing to do anything in return. He told her it was impossible. Sana immediately replied that she would become his slave if she couldn't be his disciple. At that moment, Letitia appeared and saw she just stared at them until they noticed her. Then, Haru asked Letitia why she was here. Letitia asked Haru what he was thinking, trying to make a little girl his slave. He realized that Letitia wasn't entirely wrong, except she didn't know the reality of the situation. He explained that it was just a misunderstanding, but Letitia didn't want to hear any of it, and even brought up his change in hairstyle. Sana asked Haru who Letitia was, but he couldn't give a straight answer. Then, he remembered something, and asked Letitia why she was following him when they had already settled things with a duel. She exclaimed that she wouldn't count that match and called it invalid. Seeing the situation getting worse, Alice decided to do something and called Sana over, then whispered something in her ear. Sana giggled and then said out loud that Letitia was actually in love with her master, making both of them angry. Sana declared that Letitia seemed to like him so much that she bullied him, even though she was called a hero. She was a human after all. So Haru told Letitia that it wasn't good to push her feelings onto others. When he looked over at Sana, who was also trying to become his student, he made the comparison and realized this really wasn't okay. A hero's stats are all boosted, so you can't judge their strength by level alone. He figured the only reason he won before was probably because Letitia had let her guard down. If she were actually serious, she could easily blow away the entire mountain they were on. So, he assumed that what Sana just said was enough to make her furious. But when he turned to stop Sana, he saw that Letitia's face was bright red. Haru was confused by this and asked her what she had actually said. Meanwhile, Ange asked Nine if they were a tsundere. Sana was by her master's side, and Letitia seemed to be getting along with Sana. Seeing that this could happen, they felt a little worried. As for Haru, after thinking that Letitia was in love with him, he didn't feel happy. Instead, he just had a blank, cold expression, wondering what love really was. He called out to Letitia, and when she turned to look, he told her there was something inside the cave behind them. The others observed Haru acting a bit cold as he led Letitia to believe that if she cleared the area first, she would keep him from getting any rewards from the quests. She ran into the cave, and Angie mentioned that it was about time for the doors to close, and slowly they sealed up, trapping Letitia inside. Alice asked Haru if that was okay, and he replied that it would be fine, since Letitia could probably get out on her own after a few days. Alice noted that Haru had never been like this before, while Sana noticed that her master's expression was extremely cold, so it was best not to make him angry. Alice realized that Sana would definitely be staying, since she didn't leave even after seeing Haru like that. By evening, Ange thanked everyone for a long day and announced they were going to bed, and that there were enough blankets for everyone to ensure no one caught a cold sleeping on the floor. Alice noticed Haru wasn't there, and after searching, she found him sitting alone. She went over to him and told him to let her know whenever he wanted to go somewhere alone, because they were companions. Haru said his head was a mess right now, and then asked Alice that if someone tells them they love them, do they have to accept that person's love in some form? Alice didn't expect him to be thinking about something like that. After a moment of thought, she told him that wasn't the only way in situations like this. The most important thing was his own feelings. Haru remembered how he felt about Letitia in the early days, when he never thought about leaving her. But before he knew it, she had become a completely different person. Now that he was completely over those feelings and had left Letitia, it was ridiculous for her to be following him like this. He didn't know what he wanted to do. Alice understood his situation and said she would always be his ally. But in this one matter, she couldn't help him because she had a secret motive. So she told him to consider thinking about the one and only goal of this journey. Haru asked Alice if that was even possible, and she replied that anything was possible, which is what made the life of an adventurer so great. Since there were no rules when it came to setting their goals, he felt that there was no need to answer right away. And then, out of curiosity, he asked Alice why she became an adventurer. She was a little surprised, since she'd never been asked that before. She told him she didn't have a particular reason, but one of them was to meet someone she wanted to see. Hearing that, Haru felt they should hurry on their journey to find the person she wanted to meet. Alice said that wasn't necessary right now, because she was able to meet them around the same time she met Haru. He felt happy for her. Meanwhile, she quickly stood up and ran back, reminding him to be careful not to catch a cold from the wind. He thanked her for her concern, and after she left, he wondered who this person Alice wanted to meet was. Alice realized it was a huge risk saying things like that to Haru, because he was the person she had been looking for a long time. She remembered her past when she first met Haru 10 years ago. Back then, Alice was a cheerful little girl who had just moved to the town where Haru lived. Her parents asked if she was feeling okay, and little Alice enjoyed looking out the window, loving the beauty of the village. Then, she saw her parents helping move things into the new house. Her father told her to go play outside for a bit, and Alice asked her mother for permission. Her mom told her not to go too far and to be back before it was time for her medicine. Afterward, little Alice walked around the village, looking at the river and the trees, enjoying nature, thinking how pleasant the air was. It was the first time she'd been able to walk on her own 2 feet for so long without feeling any pain. She thought that her illness might have been cured in this village. Suddenly, a boy fell out of the tree she was sitting under. The boy was none other than Haru. He asked if she was the new kid who had just moved to town. Alice introduced herself to him, and he did the same. He held out his hand to her, asking if she wanted to play. She still remembered that day clearly, because it was the first time she and Haru had met. The young boy, Haru, asked her if she was there for treatment, and she told him it was because the city was too dusty and made her sickness worse. He asked if she could play games like tag. Seeing no other option, he suggested they take a slow walk around the village, hoping Alice would get better soon so they could play tag together. The little girl smiled at his encouraging words. They walked a lot that day, but because of that, Alice came down with a fever the next day. Because her body was frail, Alice could only go for a walk once a week. She wondered if the friends she had made would start to hate her, and because she didn't want that to happen, she desperately wanted to get better quickly so she could play with Haru. Haru always kept an eye on her condition, and Alice often felt jealous of that attention. She wondered what was happening with Letitia, and remembered that she didn't really play with Letitia. Letitia often complained about her own life, while Alice wished she could hear things like that from someone just once. Letitia thought she was a bit strange, but Alice told her that wasn't true. Back then, Letitia was actually a good person and really wanted Alice to get better soon. After that, they played together, and all of it made Alice happier because she could play with Letitia, as well as with Haru. Alice remembered those moments as the happiest time of her life, and it was the positive influence from both of them that helped her recover from her illness. But their happy days came to an end when Alice was unprepared for what happened next. She started coughing up blood, and soon her hands and the ground where she stood were stained red with it. Haru came to her rescue, and Alice still remembered it was the day of the festival, a day she was so excited for because Haru had invited her. But then she suffered a terrible attack, the likes of which she hadn't experienced since meeting him. Fortunately, some adults were there to help her, and she narrowly escaped death. However, seeing her covered in blood was a horrifying sight for Haru. At that moment, everything came crashing down for her. From that day on, Haru blamed himself, thinking he was the reason her condition had worsened. He was severely traumatized and cried almost every day. He even threw up his food, which made him so weak that his life was in danger. By the time Alice found out about his condition, 2 weeks had passed since the day she collapsed. She asked her parents why they hadn't told her, feeling like she had to go and apologize to Haru immediately to make it clear that none of it was his fault. Her parents told her that Haru wasn't in that state anymore, but if she saw him, there was no guarantee what might happen to him. This meant Alice couldn't see Haru anymore. So she asked her parents about the magic they had been studying to treat her illness until now. They agreed that they had learned a great deal, so Alice asked if they could use some kind of magic to erase all memories of a specific person from someone's mind. They couldn't believe Alice was even considering it, but as soon as she said the words, she felt herself break apart from the inside. She asked her parents to erase all memories of her from Haru's mind after hearing Alice's sorrowful decision. Her parents tried to make her understand that it was just an accident and no one was at fault, so she shouldn't torment herself over it. Alice still believed that Haru was suffering because of her and felt guilty for hurting her best friend. She begged her parents to listen and help Haru in this way, and after much convincing, they couldn't refuse her request. Their memory-erasing magic worked on Haru, and his health improved, as if nothing had ever happened. Not only that, but Alice also made sure he wouldn't regain his memories by seeing her. So she left the village, feeling the bittersweet pain of having to leave Haru behind. She knew she could never forget her first friend. Alice thought that was all she would ever have left of Haru on the day she departed, and cried for everything that had happened. But she didn't give up, and after a few brave years, she overcame her illness because the desire to see Haru again was her only reason to live. By this point, Alice had completely changed, becoming strong after all those years. She wanted to redo her meeting with Haru so that she could be with him. She realized her decision to erase Haru's memories had been selfish, so she decided to change her hair color with magic and become an adventurer, so she could return to the village in disguise. But when she arrived, she learned that Haru had left with Letitia. As she set out to find him, she also discovered that Letitia had become a hero, which made it easier for Alice to track them down. After some time, she finally found Haru, just as he was at the guild, informing the staff that he was leaving the hero's party. Alice was stunned to suddenly find Haru, and she turned away, feeling too shy to face him like this after so many years, even though he had no idea who she was. She was also surprised to hear he was leaving the hero's party, but when she saw him struggling to find a quest on his own, she couldn't stand to watch him have a hard time. She just hoped that Haru wouldn't remember her, so she decided to approach him as a complete stranger. She called out to Haru and introduced herself, asking if they could talk for a moment. She was lost in thought about her story, while Haru watched her, wondering what was on her mind. She asked him if something was wrong, and Haru said he felt a strange sense of familiarity when he looked at her. She became extremely anxious, thinking that changing her hair color might not have been enough. She felt she should have changed her name and face too, but changing one's face was a serious crime. Haru told her the feeling he got was a sense of comfort whenever she was around, because she was always there to save him. Being praised by him put Alice at ease, and she tried to humbly reply that she would always do so. But before she could finish her sentence, Sana interrupted their conversation, saying Haru could depend on her too. Sana had ruined Alice's moment to talk with him, which made Alice so angry she had to clutch her own head. Alice then tried to calm herself down, knowing that she would always be there to save Haru, and that it was what she wanted to do as a form of atonement, because Haru was also her reason for living. She also had to deal with the problem of Letitia, who used to get along so well with Haru. Alice couldn't understand why Letitia was acting that way towards Haru, and her obsession with him was just not normal. She couldn't help but wonder what had happened to Letitia while she was away. Afterward, they could see the city of Orlando, and Haru was amazed to see that the entire city looked like a castle. Then, someone called out to Nine, and she realized it was a servant from the Autumn household. She asked him what was wrong, and the servant informed them that they needed to proceed through the city's rear gate, because the situation in Orlando was not good. There were rumors that Ange was using monsters to attack people. Everyone was shocked to hear that, and the one most affected was Ange herself. The servant reported that there were still many who believed in Ange, but the situation within the city was still not good. Nine asked who was spreading such terrible rumors about her. Ange told Nine that they should get to the bottom of this first, so they should hurry to the manor. When they arrived at the castle, they were welcomed by Ange's father, who was also the Lord of Orlando, Cardell Autumn. He thanked Haru for saving his daughter's life and expressed that he would love to throw a party in his honor, but couldn't due to the current situation. Haru assured him that everything was fine, and then Ange asked her father what was really happening in Orlando. Cardell said he wasn't sure about it either, and that some people had even testified to seeing Ange controlling the monsters. Everyone was surprised to hear that, since Ange had been with them the whole time. Nine told Lord Cardell that something was definitely wrong with this. Cardell replied that the Autumn family was currently investigating further, and added that another unusual thing was that Ange had been attacked by monsters during her pilgrimage. He informed them that the testimonies appeared right after Ange left for her pilgrimage. So some people had suggested that Ange might have had herself attacked by those death ants just to avoid suspicion. Nine exclaimed that it was ridiculous and that they needed to do something to prove Ange's innocence. Suddenly, another maid ran in, looking worried and panicked. No one expected a new face to appear so suddenly. The person walked in and announced that the Adventurers Guild had issued a ban on Ange Autumn, and he was here not only to inform her, but also to ensure that she complied with the order. He instructed Ange that she needed to follow the guild's decision, whether she was Lord Cardell's daughter or a saintess. Nine wasted no time and drew her knives to deal with the suspicious man who had just appeared, seemingly targeting Ange. Haru and Alice were both shocked to see Nine was willing to go so far as to defy the guild's decision. But surprisingly, the man, Jean, caught her knives with just his fingers, showing that he was a seasoned adventurer, not just some random rookie. He suggested that Nine hear him out completely. Before reacting to him, Nine quickly jumped back to prepare for another attack, unwilling to listen to what Jean had to say. He tried to tell her something, but Nine launched her next attack at him. Jean tried again to explain that there were some circumstances to consider, but seeing that she wouldn't listen no matter how many times he repeated himself, he got angry and threw a punch at her, stating that she should listen when someone is talking. Nine couldn't keep up with the punch's speed, and in an instant, Haru used a basic defense spell to block Jean's fist. The blow was repelled, making Jean's hand ache, and he couldn't believe Haru had become so strong in such a short time. He asked Haru if he was the one who did that. Haru confirmed that he was the one who did it, having activated the spell with extremely high precision and power. Jean could sense just from this one encounter that he was no ordinary person. While Haru felt embarrassed by the compliment, even if it came from an enemy, Sana also said that even an ancient dragon like her acknowledged his strength because he was a level 82 mage. Alice quickly covered Sana's mouth to stop her from bragging about her true power in front of everyone. Sana got annoyed that Alice interfered, and they started arguing with each other. Meanwhile, Jean looked at the situation, tired of not being listened to. He asked Haru if he would hear him out. Jean introduced himself as just an ordinary, wandering adventurer of no importance. Jean announced that he was officially here just to observe the Saintess's trial and to prove that she wasn't doing anything that fit the rumors. He spoke on behalf of the guild, saying they didn't think the Saintess could be the one controlling the monsters, because people who have lived in Orlando for a while know Ange well. But the fact is that Orlando is surrounded by walls and has never been invaded by monsters. However, since it's a trade city, people move in and out from time to time. Those who lived here before have now left. And most people in this city haven't known the princess for that long, which is why they doubt her innocence based solely on rumors. Cardell understood that after receiving so many complaints, the guild had decided to do something to maintain peace in the city. Jean thanked him for finally summarizing what he had wanted to tell them. Ange listened to him carefully and decided to agree to the guild's order. Nine didn't expect Ange to accept, as she didn't want her mistress to follow instructions from anyone who was rude to her, especially someone like Jean. Ange explained to Nine that clearing up any suspicion would be to their benefit. Jean said he was glad she understood and affirmed that he was her ally. He assured her he didn't want to watch her all day, unless she wouldn't mind him peeking into her bathroom. This angered Nine, and she pointed a knife at his neck, warning him not to get ahead of himself. Jean noted that Nine was quicker than before, and now that things were clear, they decided to assess the situation. Alice suggested there were two possibilities. Either the witnesses were lying, or an Ange imposter was causing trouble for her. But something was still off. How could someone disguise themselves so perfectly? Alice said there were indeed ways to change one's hair color, but the magic to copy someone else's face was a crime. Haru was amazed to hear that such magic existed. Ange praised Alice for her vast knowledge. Alice replied that she didn't know much and that they should now think about what these criminals' goal was. She asked Ange if she had any ideas, but Ange couldn't think of what could be behind this. Suddenly, a maid ran in with shocking news for Lord Cardell, that some monsters had infiltrated the city of Arlando. Haru quickly asked the maid for the monster's location to take care of them, and Cardell thanked him for his help. The others wanted to go with him as well. Haru asked Ange and Nine to stay here while they handled the situation. He started cleaning up the city by incinerating the monsters with a basic fire spell. Sana was always impressed with her master's power. It was truly on another level. He asked her if it looked strange. Instead of answering, Sana asked why he thought it was normal in the first place. She said she had withstood many explosion spells before, but none had ever been able to hurt her scales. Meanwhile, the burst flame spell Haru had used on her the first time truly made her feel fear. Haru was slowly beginning to realize his own strength, and Alice was happy to see he was finally getting it, as she had been trying to tell him about his power from the very beginning. Just then, Haru overheard the nearby soldiers murmuring about how the monsters attacked again, right after Ange returned. They thought the rumors must be true. Haru watched them suspecting Ange without any proof. It was terrible that the rumors were spreading even further. Haru remembered Ange's dream of becoming a saintess and giving back to the people of Orlando for everything they'd done for her. It pained him to see someone as pure as Ange suffering just because someone held a grudge against her. Meanwhile, Alice grew worried seeing Haru in that state. Haru told everyone that so many people believed the rumors, and he felt guilty for having doubted Ange himself. At the same time, Nine said that Ange might not be able to report the completion of one of her pilgrimages to the church since she couldn't go out right now. Jean announced that it would be fine if he went with her, assuring them that the guild was her ally. Ange felt she could go, now that the misunderstanding had been cleared up. Then Haru realized something and told them to stop. He pointed out that the request Jean received from the guild was to observe Ange, not to protect her. Jean was a bit surprised that Haru had noticed that small detail, so he clarified that he wasn't one to move around much, so he wouldn't do any more work than what he was paid for. Nine got angry because that meant Jean would do nothing if Ange was in danger. Since his job was only to observe her, not protect her, Haru reassured Nine, saying that Jean was right in this aspect, as adventurers are not obligated to do charity work. They take requests and deliver results in exchange for the reward. Adventurers have to be this way because they need to make a sustainable living. Afterward, Sana asked why Haru went out of his way to destroy all the dead ants without getting any reward. Alice also recalled the time he told Ange that she didn't have to thank him for anything. Haru felt down, remembering he hadn't really practiced what he preached. Haru apologized for not paying attention, since this was an emergency situation, making Jean chuckle at how someone like Haru had no self-awareness, despite possessing incredible magical power. Jean realized that Haru had a soft heart, even though he'd spoken so coldly before, and began to think as if Haru reminded him of something. Haru didn't understand what Jean had just said, and then Jean added that if Haru wanted to come along as a bodyguard, that was fine with him. Nine admitted that it would be better for Haru to protect Ange than a large number of soldiers, which could give the public a bad impression. Alice asked if she and Sana should patrol the surrounding area, since they might be able to do something to build trust that way. Nine agreed that she should, while Sana wanted to go with Haru. But Nine mentioned she could prepare a high-quality meat dish for dinner. And upon hearing that, Sana quickly changed her mind to patrol the area as best as she could. However, something was still troubling Nine, so she asked if Haru could speak with her for a moment. In private, Nine asked Haru if Jean was really sent here at the guild's request, and Haru confirmed that he was, as he had also confirmed this with the guild beforehand. The guild had told him that adventurers friendly with Ange wouldn't be able to view her objectively, which is why they chose someone with no connection to Orlando. Nine's expression looked sad, so Haru asked if something was worrying her. Nine told him that she couldn't trust Jean for some reason, and planned to have House Autumn investigate him further. She bowed her head and asked Haru to protect Ange before she left. When Ange arrived, she saw Haru's face before he went on patrol, which made him feel a bit flustered. Haru then asked Alice if they could stay in Orlando until the suspicions about Ange were cleared up. He hesitated to ask her this, as it wasn't their mission and they weren't getting paid for the work. But in the past, he had been a worthless piece of trash, treated so badly by Letitia that he always believed he couldn't do anything for anyone. But now that there were people who believed in him and depended on him, Haru wanted to stand up and meet their expectations. Alice hugged Haru unexpectedly and said he was truly a hopeless case for not understanding what she wanted for him. She already knew Haru would decide this way. And because he was that kind of person, she wanted to continue accompanying him on his journey. At the same time, she also cheered him on, declaring that they would definitely catch the criminal causing all this trouble. Haru was happy to hear those words from her, and they planned to carry out their strategy. Afterward, Haru accompanied Ange to the church, where she explained that Orlando has many devout followers in various churches, but the one that handles everything and holds it all together is the Grand Shrine, or simply put, the main temple. Haru asked if they were going to meet a priestess, and she nodded in agreement. As they went further, they saw a lone girl standing and looking at the church with a calm demeanor. She realized that visitors had arrived, and it was none other than Ange, who knew this girl. She was the priestess Lona, also Ange's childhood friend. Ange asked if Lona was doing well, but Lona didn't respond, only looking at Haru and asking who he was. Ange introduced Haru to Lona, saying he was a very strong adventurer. Then she also introduced Jean to Lona. Ange introduced Lona Fallon to Haru and Jean, stating that she was the priestess of the Grand Shrine of Orlando. The two of them had gone to church together since they were little, but as she was about to call Lona her childhood friend, Lona cut her off and got straight to the point, asking if Ange was here to report the completion of her pilgrimage. Ange was taken aback by the interruption, but she still held out her hand for Lona to see. Sure enough, Lona looked at Ange's hand and confirmed that she had more powder than before. After checking Ange's hand, Lona excused herself, citing work as a reason. Ange sensed that Lona was no longer acting normal with her. Afterward, Haru asked if the report really needed to be that quick. Ange stood silent for a moment and told Haru that Lona was her childhood friend. They used to play together throughout their childhood, and Lona also wanted to become a priestess for Orlando, just like her. Lona had come to the shrine every day. But ever since Ange was chosen as a saintess in training and Lona became a priestess, they no longer had many chances to meet. She realized that it was inevitable, as Lona's work as a priestess was much harder than her role as a saintess in training. Ange felt sad, and Haru noticed it. He comforted her as she cried about it, and said he hoped she and Lona would get a chance to talk to each other to sort things out. Ange felt happy and thanked Haru for comforting her. Meanwhile, Lona stood from a distance, watching intently as Haru and Ange laughed and talked together, and it seemed to stir feelings of jealousy within her. Lona thought bitterly to herself why it was always Ange who got the good things in life. The next morning, monster attacks began to increase throughout the city, coming from all directions one after another. As a result, Haru and the others were exhausted from dealing with so many monsters. Sana complained that there were so many monsters she didn't even want to go outside. Alice was also tired, wondering what the culprit really wanted from all of this. At that moment, Nine knocked on the door and informed them that she'd just received a report about the recent series of attacks aimed at them. Nine confirmed that Alice's guess was correct. There was an imposter disguised as Ange. Among the witnesses was a merchant who had a long-standing relationship with House Autumn, and he had testified that it was Ange who had attacked them. Haru asked if that meant those people were using magic to copy someone else's appearance, and Nine said this could be trouble, not just for them, but for everyone. If that was the case, Haru didn't understand the reason why. Nine explained that forbidden magic could throw the world into chaos, which is why it's strictly controlled. Normally, a person wouldn't be able to learn how to perform this magic, and those caught using it would be severely punished. Therefore, the fact that the culprit was willing to face the consequences meant that they held a grudge against Ange. Haru and the others were stunned to hear that. Then Ange mentioned that whoever was doing this might want her to withdraw from the race to become a saintess. Haru asked her what that meant, and Ange explained that there's a limit to the number of people who can become a saintess, as it would be a huge problem if there were too many people capable of resurrecting the dead. Furthermore, Ange had heard that 6 people had already completed the pilgrimage to become true saintesses, which meant that there was now only 1 spot left, which made Haru and the others understand the situation better. The fact that there were still more than 10 saintesses in training on their own journeys was surely related to this. Jane concluded that one of those saintesses in training might be trying to take Ange down this way to become a true saintess herself. Ange agreed that this was the only way someone could target her. Then Haru asked Ange if someone who could control monsters and was involved with dark magic could become a saintess in training. Since it wasn't easy for just anyone to pass such an oracle, Ange was surprised for a moment and told him she didn't think it was possible. Jean laughed when he heard that, thinking Ange assumed a saintess could be a bad person, and she felt embarrassed for making a fool of herself like that. Haru comforted her, saying it was fine since nothing serious had happened. Then Sana shouted for everyone to stop their noisy chatter and start searching for the culprit instead of just talking like this. With that said, she went on patrol with Alice. They realized Sana was right and smiled, knowing that worrying wouldn't solve anything. Haru assured Ange that everything would be all right, as he and Alice would try to find a solution to the situation. Ange was touched when she heard that. Jean also asked Ange if she had any plans, and she quickly returned to her room so she wouldn't be a bother. Meanwhile, Jean said he would go do his own work, since he didn't need to watch her if she was in her room. He left and told her to let him know if she needed anything. Before leaving, Nine also had some things to prepare, so she asked her fans to call her before she left the room and to make sure she was never alone with Jean. After that, everyone started to carry out their plans. Ange looked around and saw that everyone else in the castle was also busy. She wondered what was happening, but when she got there, she saw her father busy managing the guards and the finances, along with various medicinal herbs. Cardell's servant suggested he should rest, but he replied that he couldn't afford to wait when both his daughter and Orlando were in danger. He wanted to do everything he could to protect them, and felt terrible for what those around them were going through, and he blamed himself for it. Meanwhile, Sana was destroying the monsters one by one, but what bothered her was the distance from her master. She wished she could be with Haru, but she couldn't do that because monsters were running rampant everywhere. The guards had to remind Sana not to get too carried away, while they also felt relieved to be in the group of an ancient dragon. Suddenly, one of the soldiers spotted something unusual. Someone who looked like Ange was standing next to a monster. They decided to capture her, regardless of whether she was the real Ange or not. Sana looked at the fake Ange in front of her and didn't waste a single second attacking this imposter. She rushed in immediately to expose the fake in front of everyone. She punched her in the face, after which the shape-shifting began to break down. As the transformation spell broke, the culprit's face was just a step away from being revealed to Sana. But suddenly, a few knives came flying, forcing Sana to back away. The imposter saw this as a chance to escape, so they immediately fled. Sana was frustrated that she had let the fake Ange slip through her fingers when she was so close to exposing their identity. The guards comforted Sana, telling her she did a good job pointing out that the person was a fake. They let her know that Ange was under surveillance at her house, so this discovery was a good thing for them. Sana was happy to hear that and planned to report the incident. But then suddenly, Ange collapsed by the wall. Ange said she came because she heard monsters had appeared here. She asked Sana if there was anything she could do to help. Sana was shocked to see Ange appear and ruin the entire purpose of them spreading out to deal with the monsters. So she yelled at Ange for disrupting their formation and took Ange to see Haru. Haru was annoyed to see Ange out like this, as the real Ange's appearance where the monsters were had caused chaos around town. And since she was the real Ange, the responsibility would ultimately fall on her. Jean also arrived and said the situation was already bad enough, but Ange had just made it worse. Sana asked Ange what she was trying to do when the suspicions about her had been nearly cleared up. Ange apologized while crying, saying she just wanted to help everyone somehow because they were all suffering because of her, and she couldn't stand the thought of not helping them. Ange didn't want to be useless, but now that she had caused more trouble, it only made her feel guilty. Haru told her she was wrong to think that way and explained that the reason they were in trouble was because of the culprit who was causing these incidents. He took her hand and confessed that if they got hurt, it wouldn't be her fault, so she shouldn't think like that. Furthermore, the important thing was that the reason they were trying so hard was because she was important to them. So he told her not to worry about it. She felt comforted hearing his words that she was important to Haru, and he also agreed that it was true, which immediately made her blush, making her feel all flustered. Haru asked if she was okay, but the person he should have been asking was her father, who wanted to intervene but couldn't because he could sense the current atmosphere in the room. Haru asked Sana if she could show him the knives that someone had thrown to stop her from capturing the culprit. Sana suddenly got lost in thought and realized that she had left behind everything that could have been collected as evidence. Haru was stunned to learn that she had left potential evidence against the culprit behind. Sana apologized to him, and he quickly told her to lead the way to the scene of the incident instead. But Sana was disappointed when they got there, because the knives had already been taken by the one who threw them. She felt like a failure. Haru comforted her, saying that it couldn't be helped. He asked her why she was trying so hard to help Ange. Sana didn't understand why he would ask her that, but Haru pointed out that she wasn't really involved in this. And even though she complained about everything, she still diligently patrolled the area. She was also frustrated that she couldn't catch the culprit, which showed she was willing to do anything to help. Even so, Sana felt incredibly happy to hear praise from Haru, and she immediately snapped out of her sad mood. She asked Haru if she was a hardworking and good girl. Haru didn't want to disappoint her, so he patted her on the head and said she was a good girl. Sana felt shy being praised like that and wished he would pat her head more. Haru had no idea she would be so happy just from receiving a compliment. Sana asked Haru if he knew how dragons were born. He replied that they were born from an egg, and Sana said he wasn't wrong. She explained that it can take many years or even decades for their eggs to hatch. When Sana was born, she was the only child left in a cave. When Sana left the cave, she saw many things as a baby dragon, including a family of foxes. She felt lonely, and when she tried to approach humans hoping they would be happy to play with her, they reacted with hostility. They threw stones at her to drive her away or kill her with the help of high-level adventurers. No one would let her into their villages, which made her cry. After that, she started acting out and causing trouble by intimidating them or taking their food. Sana realized she'd acted foolishly back then, but now, seeing Ange with that same lonely look in her eyes, Sana didn't want to leave Ange alone and was determined to make her smile. Haru didn't quite get what Sana was trying to say, and seeing that he was dumber than she thought, Sana simplified it for him, explaining that Ange's father and everyone in the city loved her. She knew Ange was lucky to have all that, but now that it was all being taken away, Sana couldn't forgive the culprit who was hurting Ange. Haru started to understand Sana a little better. He realized she was actually a good kid, so he patted her on the head. Sana really liked getting her head patted like that, but she felt a chill down her spine remembering that Alice would get mad at her again for getting too carried away. Since Alice could be really scary at times like these, Haru told her that Alice was out right now. Sana wondered why Alice would be on patrol so late. He looked up at the night sky and informed her that Alice had something she needed to check on at this hour. Sana wondered what it could be. While in Ange's room, Nine wished her a good night and told her to rest well. Ange wished her the same, but she felt sad seeing that Nine was unhappy. She asked Nine if she was still mad about her sneaking out earlier. Nine said that wasn't the issue, but the fact that Ange left without telling her. made her feel like she wasn't a good enough maid for Ange to trust. Ange hadn't meant to hurt Nine like that. And after Nine left, Ange felt guilty, wondering if she was really qualified to be a saintess. She recalled a memory from the past when she and Lona were very close, even on the day Ange received the revelation to become a saintess candidate. Lona had run up to happily congratulate Ange, saying she knew Ange would become a saintess one day. Ange humbly said she'd only become an apprentice. Lona replied that even that was amazing, then told Ange that she had also been nominated to become the next priestess. Ange was astonished to hear that. Lona said she was only able to come so far because Ange was by her side. She loved that Ange was trying her best. And so, she felt like she should do the same. Lona said they should keep trying their best for Orlando from now on. Ange wondered if someone like her could really become a saintess, since Lona was more deserving of such things. Lona laughed at that and assured her that she would definitely become a saintess. Ange fell asleep with these uncertain thoughts about herself. She was drowning in her own anxiety and had caused trouble for so many people. Not only that, but she had also hurt the ones she loved. She wished she could talk to Lona right now. Meanwhile, on a dark night, in a desolate place, Jean arrived at a shady hut to meet with a suspicious person, asking how they were feeling. This person knew that Jean had thrown the knives to save Ange back then. He laughed and said he was just killing time, then moved on to the main topic. He announced that their plan was going smoothly and that it was only a matter of time before everyone lost faith in the saintess. The plan was in its final stage, so he told her not to screw it up. That person was none other than Lona, and she seemed to be filled with hatred, as if everything was about Ange. Lona declared that they would force Ange to abandon her position as saintess, and then make all of Orlando fall. That was her true goal in this whole charade. She thanked Jean for helping her with all of this, and he appreciated it. But she wasn't happy about the final plan being delayed, as she was tired of waiting. Jean replied that the final order had finally been sent today, so they would carry out the final part of their plan tomorrow night, right in the heart of Orlando. The plan was for Lona to summon all the monsters she could, while still in the guise of the saintess. He told her that was all she needed to do. She then asked if that was really okay, since many people had already realized there was an imposter on the loose. Jan said that was actually good for them, because it would be more effective in bringing down the city, because those who believe Ange is the culprit will think that anyone who still trusts her is a fool. Meanwhile, those who trust Ange will see anyone who doesn't as a traitor, and this will lead to even more chaos. The suspicion between the two sides will continue to escalate, and eventually all that doubt and frustration will build up and explode. They won't even need the monsters to attack to get the people of Orlando to fight each other. Jean asked Lona how she felt about that plan, as it promised the destruction of Orlando they so desired. He asserted that it would surely happen, as he believed all humans are greedy and only care about themselves. However, he had a different opinion of that mage kid, referring to Haru. Getting back to the plan, he confirmed with her that it would be carried out tomorrow night. And a huge revelation took place. Alice had eavesdropped on their entire conversation and immediately informed Lord Cardell and the others. Cardell couldn't believe a priestess would do such a thing. Alice found it hard to believe too, but that's what she heard. She explained that she wasn't in the castle that night because she was tailing Jean. When asked how she came to suspect Jean, Alice said it was just a woman's intuition at first. But then she realized it was Haru who had noticed something unusual about Jean. Haru recounted the time he and Ange went to report to the church. He noticed that Lona only asked about his identity, even though Jean was also right there. Not only that, but Haru noticed Jean acted as if it was the first time they had met, making him suspect they might have already known each other, but were trying to hide it. He also noticed that Jean wasn't bothered when Ange snuck out unsupervised, seeming completely unconcerned about it, even though failing to watch over Ange resulted in him not getting his quest reward. So, Haru and Alice decided to tail Jean. But since Jean seemed wary of Haru, Alice decided to take over for him. Then, Nine reported the results of her investigation into Jean, telling everyone that while Jean claimed to be just a wandering adventurer, he was actually a mercenary specializing in underground activities. The jobs he'd taken on included conspiracy, torture, and assassination, among other unspeakable things. He probably had some scheme to get chosen as Ange's supervisor, which is why he tried to sneak into the Adventurers Guild. Sana spoke up, saying they should just capture Jean and force him to spill everything. But Ange was devastated to learn that it was Lona who had been hurting her all this time, making her wonder if all of Lona's encouragement, support, and smiles had just been a facade. Haru noticed Ange's condition worsening, so he quickly took her hand, advising her to have a proper talk with Lona first. He said there was a chance Lona was being deceived by Jean, or that it could just be some kind of misunderstanding. Haru insisted that Ange needed to calm down and talk to Lona later. He wanted to advise her to trust her childhood friend, but he suddenly remembered what happened with his own childhood friend, Letitia, who was now just a scar on his heart. Haru really wanted to tell Ange she had to trust her friend, but he wasn't sure if he could say that when he himself had gone through the same thing. Ange noticed Haru had suddenly become sad, but when he told her it was nothing, Alice asked Haru for his next plan, since if they just went in and questioned Jean and Lona, they would probably pretend to know nothing about it. Haru was aware of that, so he came up with an idea and asked if everyone would hear him out. Meanwhile, at the sanctuary, Lona was staring up at the ceiling, recalling a recent memory of when she first met Jean. He had killed the assassin sent after her. Lona had been terrified by the situation, seeing assassins targeting her. She had asked John who sent them, and he claimed that he thought Lona might already know it was the other Saintess candidate, Ange, who had hired those assassins to get rid of her. He was deceiving her, but Lona thought Ange could never do something like that to her. He asked Lona if she really believed that, since she was the one who had worked so hard as a priestess, while Ange had done little more than become a Saintess candidate. Now that Lona had become a full-fledged priestess, Ange hadn't come to see her this whole time. He told her to think about it carefully and to remember if Ange had ever truly been her friend. The image Lona had of Ange in her mind changed drastically. She recalled a time she had spoken with another priestess, but her memories seemed to have been manipulated, making her think negatively about everything. Lona thought everyone was mocking her, including Ange. Her memories were altered to the point that she believed Ange thought she was a fool, only good for being used, and could never be loved, even after she became a priestess. Lona's mind began to crumble as she believed these negative and manipulated memories were the truth, and that truth was a bitter one. She thought Ange had been deceiving her all along, even though Ange had done nothing wrong. Jean smirked to himself as his plan succeeded, then sat down and told Lona he was sent here by someone who had discovered Ange's plot. He asked Lona, the priestess, if she wanted revenge and that he would help her. At the same time, in the castle, Sana asked Nine if she could have another piece of bread. Nine told her it was impolite to just ask like that. Just then, Lord Cardle expressed his concern over the decreasing number of patrolmen. Haru reassured him that everything would be fine, for which Cardle was very grateful. Lord Cardle hoped that the situation would calm down soon. Suddenly, a soldier rushed in to report some bad and urgent news, even if it meant interrupting their breakfast. The soldier announced that the so-called fake Ange had turned herself into the Adventurers Guild. Hearing this, Jean was the most surprised person at the table. He asked where the fake was now, and the soldier reported that she was being held in the guild's dungeon. This news spread throughout the town, but no chaos erupted elsewhere. Very quickly, the news that the fake Ange had turned herself in reached Lona. She was shocked to hear it and immediately went to their hideout to meet Jean. She asked him what these rumors meant, and Jean was just as surprised as she was. He was relieved to see that it wasn't Lona who had turned herself in. Lona wasn't sure if this was part of the plan, but Jean confirmed it wasn't. This meant someone was trying to interfere with their plans. He wanted to get this sorted out quickly. So Jean decided to sneak into the Adventurers Guild dungeon to eliminate this imposter. Lona said she would go too, but Jean told her not to. However, Lona's expression suddenly turned frightening. She wanted to deal with the person standing in her way, especially at this critical point in the plan. Jane noticed that Lona might be consumed by hatred. Or perhaps it was the suggestion magic that had messed with her memory. He figured it would be fine, so they headed to the prison together, where the fake Ange was being held. Jean asked the prisoner what she was trying to do, saying that depending on her answer, they might let her go. Meanwhile, Lona coldly asked why she was standing in her way. She asked if the person was on Ange's side, because if so, she would kill them for interfering with her plans. Lona gripped the cell bars so tightly that the veins on her hands bulged as she screamed, asking why they were being silent. She yelled that they shouldn't do unnecessary things because she wanted to get her revenge on Ange herself. The person in the cell smiled, and both Lona and Jean were stunned to realize it was Alice. She smugly declared that she would take what they just said as a confession. Just as Jean and Lona realized they'd been discovered, they were suddenly surrounded from behind by Haru and the others. Haru asked if he needed to explain the situation to Jean, but Jean already understood everything. All his suspicions had led him right into Haru's trap. Haru said he felt a little guilty for tricking Jean, but Jean using such dirty methods to try and frame Ange was unforgivable. Ange was there as well, and Haru said he wouldn't arrest Jean and Lona, but would take them to the guild. Thinking Lona and Ange might not have had a chance to talk, Ange asked Lona why she was doing all this, reminding her that their goal was to work together for Orlando. But Lona screamed at them to be quiet, declaring that nothing had changed and that everything was always about Ange. She hated it all. And now Haru and the others were witnessing Lona's breakdown. Lona wanted everything to just disappear and wished for Orlando to be destroyed. She screamed and unleashed a massive amount of magic, which unexpectedly summoned a monster. Haru shielded Ange in case something bad happened, and then a dark monster appeared from the summoning. The monster had 4 horns on its head and was enormous, making Haru wonder what it was. The monster was incredibly powerful. It grabbed Lona in one hand and brought the roof crashing down on top of them. Haru told Ange to get behind him, while the monster carried Lona away from them. Ange tried to stop it, but she could do nothing but watch as the monster flew away. Alice said they had to go after Lona, but first Sana decided to capture Jean. She pulled out the daggers he'd used before, and she recognized him as the one who had stopped her. Before she could tell him that it wouldn't work on her, Jean quickly threw a bomb at her. Alice warned Sana to get back, but Jean threw a dagger at the bomb, causing it to explode in Sana's face. They realized it was just a smoke screen with pepper powder inside. Haru ran to see if Sana was all right, and he said that Jean had escaped, so they needed to hurry. But as soon as he stepped outside, he saw countless monsters rampaging through the town and attacking people. Alice quickly rushed off to protect everyone from the monsters, while Sana asked the soldiers what had happened. They replied that after the dark monster appeared, all the other monsters had just materialized out of thin air. Orlando is now swarming with monsters, so they have to split up to deal with them from all directions. Alice decides to handle the north sector, while Sana chooses the west. Haru decides to head south, but Alice and Sana stop him first to ask if he plans on using magic in the city. They remind him that he can't use magic, not even fire magic, because it would destroy the city. Haru asks about his sword, saying he only used it for self-defense when he was forbidden from using fire magic. Now that there are no more restrictions, he intends to use magic as he pleases. Alice exclaims that he should just use his sword, and thinking about the sword makes Haru wonder what it would be like to use magic that doesn't spread out. Since he needs a small range with maximum power, he gets a rough idea of what to do. Alice and Sana are confused about what Haru is thinking. Then Haru suddenly starts concentrating his magic into a single point. Alice cries out in fear, telling him he can't do that in the city. Haru recalls Sana's magic training from before, He focuses intensely on his magic and forms a shape in his mind. He thinks about all the elements, the density, and the shape of the magic needed to maintain it. Finally, he creates a sword of fire, blazing with immense power. He holds it without any problem, while Alice and Sana are both shocked to see a fire spell they've never even heard of before. Just then, a monster rushes in to attack them. Haru decides to test out his fire sword. He rushes forward and slices the monster to pieces. He feels satisfied after using the spell and assures Alice that he can now fight within the city. Alice is still both amazed and shocked to see that Haru just created a new spell in the blink of an eye. Haru agrees with her, and she begins to explain that spells are something that even the world's best mages take years to develop, so it's not something that can be done so casually like he just did. Haru says that what matters is that he did it. Even if it's strange, as long as it works, it works. Sana is terrified by Haru's power and thinks she should call him Demon Lord instead of Master from now on. Haru insists this isn't the time to talk about that. Then, Ange calls Haru and says she's heading to the central district where the Grand Cathedral is because she heard the black monster flew towards the cathedral. She guesses that Lona will surely be there. Haru tries to tell her it's dangerous, but Ange wants to be helpful for once. Besides, she wants to stop Lona because they were childhood friends. She calls out to Nine, saying she won't leave her behind anymore. So she asks if Nine wants to come with her. Nine is surprised by Ange's character development and happily agrees to go along. Haru is glad to see things are going smoothly, so everyone heads off in their assigned directions to resolve the chaos in the city of Orlando. Meanwhile, Jean is worried about the sudden changes in their plan, but he thinks it will be fine as long as everything works out in the end. He's impressed that the priestess managed to summon quite a few monsters at the last minute. Not only that, but one was a high-level monster, like an archdemon, with absolute resistance to magic. The archdemon is also immune to any spells used against it, making it the natural enemy of mages. He wonders what Haru will do against this monster. Meanwhile, Alice is slashing at the approaching monsters. However, she isn't fast enough to land a slash powerful enough to finish them off. She struggles when a wolf monster attacks her. She stops it by blocking with her sword, then spins around and lands a precise slash on its neck. She thinks she can handle this as the monster's neck slumps over. She wants to do her best as a level 22 swordsman to support Haru. She knows she can't do much, but with so many people trying to take advantage of Haru's power, she feels she needs to remind him not to use his magic too often in front of others. Just then, she suddenly realizes that Haru had always acted as support for Letitia in battles, since he was never allowed to actually fight or use his magic. And come to think of it, he had also told her that he sometimes had to wait outside. She realizes that Letitia might have been trying to protect Haru all along so that his power wouldn't be discovered by anyone to prevent him from being exploited. This meant that Letitia hurt Haru in order to protect him. She isn't sure about this. Meanwhile, Sana is eliminating the monsters on her side without much effort. She's able to handle them with just small movements, chopping them to pieces. Sana achieves an easy and magnificent victory, creating a pile of monster corpses. She believes her master, Haru, will surely praise her for it. She imagines receiving lots of praise from Haru, which motivates her to work even harder. Meanwhile, the archdemon monster is sitting at the top of the Grand Cathedral, with Lona in its hand. Lona seems to have lost her spirit, her eyes gazing down at the burning Orlando below. She wonders if she can get her revenge, when in reality, there was never anything to get revenge for in the first place. These negative feelings, this desire for revenge, were all due to suggestion magic used to control and warp her emotions. The only thing she saw was everyone loving Ange, while no one ever looked at her. She wonders why things turned out this way, as she remembers a time when she was struggling with her studies at the church, which made her worry that she might be kicked out if she failed. And as she was wondering what she could do, she saw Ange for the first time, who was just lying on the ground with animals around her. Lona thought about this girl, dozing off in the church courtyard like that. She walked over and woke Ange up, reminding her not to sleep there or the church instructors might get angry. Ange slowly opened her eyes and was startled to see Lona standing right beside her. She smiled and apologized for sleeping there while she was studying. Lona didn't think anyone could possibly study in a place like this instead of in the classrooms, but Ange thought that studying here under the sun felt pleasant and was better. She asked if Lona wanted to study with her, and Lona felt that this girl was really strange. But after Ange helped her with her studies, Lona realized she was a good person to befriend. She asked for Ange's name, and from then on, they became friends. Over time, Lona grew to cherish Ange even more, as they grew up together and supported one another. Ange always treated Lona as an equal, but when Ange talked to other people, Lona's obsession with Ange made her feel as if her friend was betraying her. Lona didn't like that, so she gradually developed the twisted idea that Ange was deceiving and using her. She thought she had to get revenge on Ange for it, even if it meant killing her. Meanwhile, Nine led Ange to the roof of the Great Temple. As soon as Ange arrived, she started looking for Lona. Lona was surprised to see Ange appear, but out of hatred, she ordered her monster to attack. Ange and Nine quickly realized the danger, and Nine protected Ange from the attack. Lona smugly declared that it was good of Ange to come here just to be killed by her. Meanwhile, Ange tried to get Lona to listen, but Lona was beyond reason, screaming for Ange to beg for her life, yelling at her not to mock her like she always did. Ange, meanwhile, couldn't understand what Lona was saying. Lona told her to shut up, but suddenly felt her strength fading. Nine informed Ange that Lona seemed to have run out of mana, which was to be expected after summoning so many monsters. Ange worried for Lona, since running out of mana in her current state could lead to death, but this was also their chance to understand that Lona's actions weren't simply instigated by Jean. It was likely Jean had used suggestion magic on her. In that case, Nine decided she would fight the monster using her flare blast magic. Lona said that attacking the demon was pointless because of its high magic resistance. Nine already knew that, but she was trying to lure the demon away. She told Ange that suggestion magic seeps into the cracks in a person's heart, and to remove it, you have to pull out the doubts from deep within. Nine declared that she would fight and keep the demon busy while Ange talked to her. Ange agreed to do it, while Lona felt unwell. She didn't want any sound around her, so she told them to be quiet. Instead of rambling, she had the demon attack them again. Nine managed to dodge the blow, taking Ange with her. Ange told Lona that she had felt lonely when she couldn't see her, but Lona retorted, saying Ange was always talking to the other priests. Lona tried to recall that time, but suddenly, she couldn't remember the negative memories anymore. She remembered shutting herself in her room after becoming a priest. So how could she have seen Ange talking to other people? Nine told Ange to keep talking to Lona. Ange asked Lona if she remembered the times they studied in the church courtyard and ate together in the cafeteria. They had also eaten pancakes made by Nine and gone shopping together on their breaks. Lona started to remember the good things she couldn't think of because of the suggestion. But when Lona remembered the day she received the revelation to become a saintess, she remembered how happy she had been about it. As Lona remembered that, the suggestion was broken. She started to feel dizzy and lost control of the archdemon. The monster dropped Lona to the ground, and Ange and Nine rushed to save her. Lona was back to her old self, and Ange realized it, so she hugged Lona tightly, crying, finally reunited after so long. But their problems weren't over yet, as the archdemon approached to attack them. Since the monster control magic had disappeared, now, as the monster's attack closed in, they closed their eyes. But after a moment, they realized nothing had happened to them. When they opened their eyes, they saw Haru had protected them with a defensive spell. He asked if they were okay, and announced that he had come here after wiping out all the monsters in the South District, while the other districts had also been taken care of by the others. So now, all that was left was to deal with the archdemon. Nine told him to be careful because this monster has the highest magic resistance, so magic wouldn't be able to harm it, no matter what he used. Haru listened to her, then asked if this monster was any different from Sana. Ancient dragons also have magic resistance, but his fire attack had hurt her a little. Nine wasn't sure, but said there were no records of an archdemon ever being harmed by magic. Haru suggested that perhaps its magic resistance was just stronger than others, rather than it being completely immune. The archdemon grew enraged after being taunted by Haru, and it challenged Haru to try and attack it. Haru happily accepted the challenge and decided to go all out. With that, he focused all his magical energy into a single point, causing the entire space to fill with magic and tremble from its pressure. Nine and the others were astonished to see that Haru's magic could create such immense tension in the air, just from its creation. They were witnessing Haru's true power for the first time, as his expression turned serious. Haru focused all his magic and unleashed a powerful flare blast, striking the archdemon head-on. The whole of Orlando shook from the intensity of the attack, and when it was over, he thought for sure it had worked. But as the dust was blown away by the wind, he realized a dark figure was still standing in the same spot. When the dust settled, Haru saw that the dark figure belonged to the archdemon, which had been burned to ash by his attack. He hadn't expected the power to be so immense that the archdemon's entire body would turn to ash and soon vanish into the air. Now, he had succeeded in defeating it. Haru asked Ange if she could talk to Lona. The others were completely shocked to witness his powerful magic defeat an archdemon with pure strength alone. Lona, remembering nothing from when she was controlled, asked Ange who this person was. Ange told her that Haru was a good person, so everything was fine. Jean was just as surprised, as he knew the archdemon's strength well. It could withstand up to 100 high-level spells without injury, and the fact that it was defeated in a single blow showed just how monstrous Haru's power was. Suddenly, he was caught by both Sana and Ange. They were able to find Jean thanks to Haru's intuition that he would definitely be watching the scene from nearby. Jean couldn't help but be surprised by that, and he knew he didn't have the strength to defeat an ancient dragon. Seeing that, he accepted his surrender. Alice thought it was weak of him to just give up like that. Jean said he didn't have the courage to resist after witnessing an attack like Haru's. He was glad he got to see something interesting today. And with this, the fake saint incident came to an end. Afterward, Lona remembered nothing from when she was controlled and was shocked to learn about everything that had happened. Fortunately, no one was killed in the incident. Sometime later, Haru went to see John, who wanted to meet him. Jean said that he didn't feel the same way as before, and declared that he had been silent previously, but now he had something he wanted to tell only Haru about the incident. Jean told Haru he wanted to tell the truth because he didn't want this to be covered up if he reported it to the guild. Haru asked if it was true that someone more powerful was behind this incident, someone capable of covering it up. Jean agreed with that part and admitted to Haru that he was really just a mercenary, so he wouldn't plan something as crazy as destroying a city. Jean said that he was actually asked to do this by the Lord of the Labyrinth City, Azrael, and her name is Miliera. Haru asked why a lord from another city would want to do something like this. Jean said he didn't know what was going on in her head, but the mind control magic used on the priestess was forbidden magic. The forbidden magic for impersonating others, as well as the monster summoning, were both powers belonging to Miliera, and he was able to activate them for some reason with a bit of authority Miliera granted him. Jean insisted he knew nothing else, leaving Haru a bit confused and asking why Jean would accept such a request in the first place. Jean said that Haru was truly a naive kid who didn't know anything, that a mercenary takes any job based solely on whether or not it pays. Jean stated that was all he had to tell Haru for now, and that Haru could ask Miliera for the rest himself. After giving Haru this information, Jean also wanted to ask Haru something in return, asking how he obtained such immense power. Haru replied that he didn't really know much about it, but if he had to say, it was that he trained a lot with his childhood friend and worked his muscles until he couldn't move. Jean couldn't believe Haru was serious about something so mundane, and told himself he shouldn't have asked Haru such a thing. Though he thought Haru was so naive, it was a miracle he wasn't on a wanted list for his power. Haru insisted he would never do anything evil, but Jean called him a fool for thinking that way. Jean explained to Haru that just having an unusual amount of power can lead a person down the wrong path. So Haru should understand the extent of his own power if he didn't want to lose the things that were important to him. Haru was surprised to hear that from someone like Jean, and Jean realized he was being a bit out of character. He told Haru that was all they needed to discuss and that he should go now. On his way back, Haru thought deeply about the matter, and it led him to believe that Jean wasn't lying about anything. The problem now was the lord of another city, who had tried to frame Ange and sabotage Orlando. Haru wanted to find out the reason behind it all, and how that lord was able to use so much unusual magic. There were too many mysteries surrounding this lord that he wanted to uncover. As he stepped out of the jail, Haru noticed Ange, Alice, and Sana trying to eavesdrop on his conversation. Sana asked if he was okay, while Alice worried if Jean had said anything strange to Haru. Haru asked if they had been waiting for him here, and Sana confirmed it, while Alice said they had been worried about him. Haru recalled everything Jean had said about how he needed to understand himself. If he didn't want to lose the things that were important to him, namely Alice, Sana, and the others. Haru knew he had to be more responsible now, so he just smiled and assured everyone he was fine. Haru told them he had something to announce, but since it was already noon, they should rest for a bit. He suggested they all go visit Lona and enjoy some snacks made by 9. Everyone agreed. And on the way, Haru told himself that he needed to learn how to better control his powerful magic and strength. And the reason why he had such immense power in the first place, he wanted to understand everything because there were people he wanted to protect. After that, they quickly made their way to the Grand Temple. Ange told everyone that Lona was busy with her treatment and questioning, so they wouldn't get to see her much. But she did say they could still have a little something to eat together. Haru said he was looking forward to it. And then he noticed some priests standing in front of Lona's room. Suddenly, a loud shout echoed from the room, declaring that she had given up on everything. The priest tried to calm Lona down, but she insisted that she couldn't continue as a priestess, and that she wouldn't come out of her room until they told her she could quit. Haru and Anja heard this and grew worried. So they went closer. Anja called out to Lona, and Lona recognized her voice. Ange said she had brought some pancakes made by 9 because she'd heard Lona liked them, and asked if they could eat together. After a short pause, Lona opened the door and came out of her room. Later, Alice, Sana, Haru, and 9 were eating at a table. Sana asked why Ange and Lona were off by themselves, and Haru said they probably had things to talk about. Ange and Lona were sitting near a fountain, eating pancakes together. Lona was enjoying the delicious pancakes and agreed with Ange that they used to eat them all the time when they were little, which reminded her of the old days. Ange was thrilled to see that the real Lona was back. They chatted for a while. Then Lona mentioned the news that she wouldn't be charged for using forbidden magic because she had been under control and couldn't remember anything. Ange was thrilled to hear it, as Lona explained that the council had decided to treat her as a victim in the incident. So they were allowing her to go back to how things were before. Ange was so happy for her, but Lona said she didn't feel right about it. This surprised Ange a little. Lona went on to say that it didn't matter how much she couldn't remember. In the end, she was the one who hurt all those people. And now they wanted her to just go back to normal, to become a priestess without a care in the world. Lona felt that just wasn't right. Angie told her she shouldn't think like that, because everything she did was due to the suggestion placed on her. Lona confessed that the reason she fell for the suggestion was because she'd been thinking about those things so much herself. When Jean asked her if Ange was truly her friend, she couldn't answer immediately. Even though she knew Ange truly saw her as a friend, Lona still felt distant from her. Ange felt terrible about that and said that the reason she tried to befriend Lona was because she thought that if they studied together, she wouldn't fail. And she supported Lona so that by doing at least that much, she'd have a place where she belonged. Lona felt that she couldn't really call herself Ange's friend and began to cry, feeling guilty. She'd always been afraid that Ange would realize she wasn't worthy of being her friend. Hearing this, Ange suddenly raised her hand and took Lona's. She told Lona that she was actually very happy, because her words were what had broken the suggestion's hold on her. Especially the fact that Lona was sharing how she truly felt. Lona hadn't expected Ange to react that way, and according to Ange, the only one at fault here was the person who placed the suggestion on her. Lona understood that there was no longer any reason for Ange to doubt her. Ange was happy that she realized that. Then, Lona asked if Ange was really the type of person to always be so supportive. Ange replied that she was trying to act like Haru to cheer Lona up. Since Haru was always encouraging her while all this was happening, she figured she should do the same for her. Lona asked if the person behind them, the one who used that insane magic, was Haru. Ange confirmed it was. Haru felt like he was being criticized by Lona, while Ange told her everything, starting from when Haru rescued her on their journey to Mount Crest. Lona then asked if Ange trusted Haru. Ange didn't hesitate to reply that Haru was very kind and reliable, which made him someone you could trust. Lona found it strange when Ange said that every time she thought of Haru, her heart felt warm and fuzzy. When she saw him, her heart would beat faster, which made her happy. Lona had an idea what this was all about, but to her surprise, Ange thought it was because she really respected Haru. If she became a true saint, she could bring happiness to everyone, just like Haru. Lona held her head in her hands, feeling hopeless at how oblivious Ange was to her own feelings for Haru. But that was just like Ange, so Lona told her to cherish that feeling. Ange agreed and said she would, while from a distance, Alice also noticed something was up between them. She called Haru a sinful man, and he asked if that's what Lona had been talking about. Santa said that he's a monster when it comes to magic, but hopelessly dense otherwise. Afterward, Haru gathered everyone, including Lord Cardell, and announced that Miliera was the mastermind behind all the chaos. Haru asked Cardell if he had ever met Miliera, since she was the Lord of Azrael. Cardell replied that he had never met her, but he had heard of Miliera's ill repute. Ange explained that Miliera had only recently become the Lord of Azrael, and that she was a tyrant. Cardell added that ever since Miliera took over, they had abruptly cut off all trade with Orlando, and he didn't know why they held such a grudge against them. Haru asked Nine how far it was to Azrael from Orlando. She replied that it would take about a week by carriage. Alice asked Haru what he would do next. And Haru said he decided to go to Azrael because he wanted to know the reason behind everything. Alice said that if he'd made up his mind, then they needed to go shopping to prepare for the trip, and that she'd be happy to join him. While Sana was ready to leave at any time, Haru was surprised to hear they wanted to come along. He asked them why they wanted to come, since he was heading to where the mastermind behind all this was located, which would certainly be dangerous. Alice just asked him why he was planning on going alone. Haru seemed a bit anxious as he told Alice that his plan to lure Jean and Lona to the prison had resulted in many people getting hurt. He felt responsible for that, and he was worried he'd just cause more trouble for everyone. Haru was overthinking things, so Alice pinched his cheeks and told him they were going together, regardless of what he said. Because he always said things like that, blaming himself whenever something bad happened, and that wasn't okay at all. Ange said she felt the same way, and reminded Haru that he was the one who said the culprit is the one at fault, the one who started all the trouble, so she wanted to help him too. Haru noticed Ange was being more assertive now. Lord Cardell, however, said he didn't think Ange needed to go, but Ange argued back, asking if he really expected her to just sit back and wait while Haru did all the dangerous work to find the truth. She said that now that she'd completed her pilgrimage, she could use a little healing magic, so she wanted to do what she could as both a saint and a lord's daughter. Lord Cardell realized his daughter had grown stronger, and seeing that there was no stopping her, he spoke to Haru. Calling him by his surname as a sign of respect, he said he was entrusting his daughter to him as a comrade. After that, they prepared to set off on their journey to Azrael, and Lona Cardell came to see them off and wish them a safe trip. Everyone was happy to receive such a warm send-off. Lona said she wanted to go with them too, but she had her duties at the temple. Ange told her not to worry about it. Lona took a deep breath and then said she would continue her work as a saint for Ange's sake and for the sake of the city of Orlando, which had forgiven her so readily. She wanted to work hard to become a true friend to Ange and told her that she loved her. Ange replied that she loved Lona too, and so they began their journey, waving goodbye to each other. Lona prayed to God to bless and protect Ange, Haru, and the others. Afterward, Haru expressed his happiness to Ange that she and Lona had mended their friendship. Ange was happy but also worried that Lona must have endured a terrifying suggestion spell that made her act that way. She wondered what kind of person Miliera was and knew she wouldn't find out until they met her in person. Meanwhile, Haru was thinking about something else. He felt like they had forgotten something. It was the hero's journey on Mount Crest, where the hero Letitia had been imprisoned. She struggled greatly and finally managed to break the sealed door, escaping from there. Letitia was furious with Haru for daring to lock her up in such a damp and musty place. She yelled that he was a fool and that she wouldn't forgive him the next time they met. She wanted revenge by defeating Haru and locking him up to repay the favor. Then, Letitia remembered she was starving. She figured his punishment could wait until after she'd had something to eat first. Her hunger grew stronger, but as Letitia felt something was wrong with her, a mysterious person suddenly appeared before her. This person seemed to know Letitia. She asked Letitia if she was the heroic swordswoman. Letitia confirmed it and asked the mysterious woman who she was. She replied that it was rude of her not to introduce herself and that her name was Miliera. She expressed her joy at getting to meet a hero. Meanwhile, at the guild's prison, it was time for the guards to change shifts. They encountered no problems outside, while inside, Jean was sitting in his cell, feeling very bored. Then someone appeared in Jean's cell, and he recognized this person. It was a little girl, and Jean thought she had arrived sooner than he'd expected. He guessed she must have been following him from somewhere nearby. Seeing that she could get into his cell undetected showed him that he had indeed signed not just Miliera's request, but his own death warrant. He knew he was about to die, so he told the person who had come to assassinate him that she should run. Seeing her, he was certain she'd been sent to kill him, regardless of whether he succeeded in his mission or not. The assassin girl told him not to compare himself to her, then drew her sword and with one clean slice, sent Jean's head falling to the ground. His blood splattered everywhere, and the guards heard a noise coming from inside. They went to check, only to discover that the prisoner, Jean, had been killed in his cell. The killer turned out to be a small, innocent-looking girl who had apparently just completed another assassination mission. Surprisingly, her next target was the traitor. Sam, the carriage driver, asked if the others could get off here, as he claimed that no decent person would want to go near the city of Azrael. After they got off, the driver reminded them to be careful up ahead, and Haru thanked him. Then, they readied themselves for their next adventure in the labyrinth city, Azrael, which loomed before them in the distance.